Hello, and welcome to Kelly's Wordy Reactions. So, today I wanted for us to take a look at this movie or documentary. It does say that this is the full movie. So, this is, sorry, this is a movie by the name of Vigilantes Inc. I'd like to think of it more as a documentary. Um, and it is basically dealing with the situation of challenging voters, challenging votes. And let me see if I can real quick find um, the definition here. Um, wanted kind of like a real quick just rundown, but I don't see it. So I'm going to just keep going. Okay, so there's this old law. This is just off the top of my head from memory. So there's this old law, real time, that people, some people are using to challenge votes. And what they're doing is they're using like um, basically they're doing these challenges in very large numbers, mostly to people that would not be able to, or they think wouldn't be able to get their everything proven in time, and so therefore they wouldn't be able to vote. So um however, they can just challenge anybody's vote so that you are registered and everything. By the time you get to the place to vote, wherever you go, they tell you that your vote has been challenged, or your residence, or like I said, this is off the top of my head, so because I saw this a while back. So anyway, basically you have to prove up everything in order to be able to vote at that time. And a lot of people don't realize that their voter right has been challenged, and so then they end up not being able to vote at all. So this documentary talks about that. I was not aware of this. I was not aware that they had, pulled this old law out the bag and basically using it against people so that they won't be able to vote, in hopes that they won't be able to get to wherever they need to get all their documents, prove up that they have a right to vote. They're hoping that you won't be able to do that. And people are doing this in large numbers. Apparently, anybody can just submit basically, however many people they want to, um, and just say these people don't have a right to vote. And then by the time you get to the ballot box, they tell you that you need to have all this stuff to prove up, or they don't accept your absentee ballot. Anyway, the documentary is going to explain it a whole lot better than I'm doing right now. But I just kind of wanted to give a brief overview of what this is before I started playing it. So I'm going to go ahead and get into it. Make sure everything is as it should be. Also, I'm going to stop this periodically because YouTube doesn't like for you to just play someone else's content straight through. If there is any chatting, we can stop periodically and kind of talk about it. But I do want to stop, have a couple of words, and then go back into it, just so it doesn't pick up as if I'm not having any commentary. There's no there's no reaction, there's no review, there's no commentary. So I don't want it to look like that. So I will be stopping periodically, not too often, but hopefully enough so that it doesn't register to YouTube that I'm just playing it straight through without any commentary or learning or whatever it is that they need for us to be able to do. I will, yep, I already have my banner going at the bottom. All right, so let's get into it.
Hello, I'm Martin Sheen. Now, you may or may not be shocked to learn that there is a real threat to the 2024 election, but I can guarantee you will be shocked by the film you are about to see that exposes in no uncertain terms the full extent of that threat. The film is called Vigilantes, Inc., and it follows the heroic investigative reporter Greg Palast as he uncovers a group of 40,000 MAGA volunteers whose efforts have already challenged the voting rights of 851,000 eligible voters with a goal of 2 million by November 5th. And nearly all of them are voters of color. Of course, all of this is just a new form of an old Jim Crow tactic first used in 1946 by the Ku Klux Klan to deny ballots to black voters. Only this time, they are using AI tricks and disinformation to deny ballots to blacks, Hispanics, and Asian American citizens. There is so little time left before the election, so I urge you to get involved by joining this heroic effort to expose voter suppression. And remember, one vote can change an election, and one heart with courage is a majority. Thanks again.
Is this an attempt to remove a lot of Democrats, black people from voting?
Get out of my house now.
I'm Greg.
Where are you from?
I'm from LA.
LA.
I hate to say
You're
it.
from Lower Alabama. That's what we call LA around here. I'm going to LA.
And so, why do you come out?
Just to support the Confederacy, you know what I mean? Yep. Just to support our history.
And so, what do you say? Our history? Do you see yourself as American history or Confederate history?
Confederate history. Yeah, Confederate history.
Yeah. Well, you can't accept the loss. It was 150 years ago. When are you guys going to give up?
Well, we're never going to give up. The South shall rise again.
When? Next Thursday?
Yeah, they did. They rose up. Yeah.
Okay, so what is this again?
The Georgia secession flag.
It's the Georgia secession flag. So this is Georgia's own state flag.
And some people called it the Georgia Republic flag because Georgia was an independent republic for 26 days before they joined the Confederacy.
This should be your future flag?
That's what that man over there said.
Yeah. What do you think?
I agree with him. I agree with him. The way things is going, we're going to have to do something.
So is it time to
I think it's time
rebel
to do,
again?
It's time to do something. Time to do something. If we don't get it back in November, well, we need to try to.
I was on a platform just the other day where it's a political platform, sort of a debating platform where they allow pretty much anybody to come on there and say whatever they want in the chats, if the host brings you up and everything. And one of the ladies that was on the platform talking had started to mention slavery. And so, of course, someone in the comments, very crass comment section, because nothing is banned, blocked, or censored. So somebody in the comments, of course, wanted to come in talking about people, bringing up slavery again, and as if it's not something to bring up. And so I just think about things like this when I hear things like that, because this is current. This documentary was done not all that long ago. These people were. This man just said, if we don't get the presidency back with this next election, that was just our previous election for the president in 2024. They're out there having a civil war reenactment, which is done all the time. I know this because I live in a rural town, and when I first, in the South, of course, when I first moved here, I don't think it still is, but when I first moved here, part of the junior high school curriculum was them in their history class. Part of their curriculum was doing a civil rights reenactment for the year in like 6th grade or something like that. And when we went around and met the teachers, and this teacher was telling us about this, I felt like I was in the Twilight Zone. I really did. I'm like, who's doing Civil War reenactments? I mean, and I had no clue, but it's a thing, So anybody who doesn't want a Black person to talk about slavery, or anybody else to talk about the the horrific situation of slavery and enslaving people, then, well, why is it that people are still running around here current day, even as I'm sure it's probably still in some schools as part of their history program, doing Civil War reenactments? I mean, where's the and this is also the day that they don't want you to talk about equity. But that can't be right. Surely if people can boldly and proudly run around doing Civil War reenactment, then we can talk about the horrors and the repercussions of enslaved people, of slavery itself, and of enslaved people and ancestors. And so anyway, I just thought I would throw that in right here while they're doing this Civil War reenactment for fun. I guess they're just doing this out there on the weekend. Y'all check it out. They got women walking around looking like old day, the women and everything that aren't even a part of the fighting part. They're just out there in full costume. But let me go ahead and continue playing.
Elect the right officials into government office. We need to get rid of wokeism, cancel culture, and all these things that's killing America.
Do you think that you can get a fair election in Georgia?
Yeah, I think now we can, hopefully. Yeah.
Why now? What's changed?
The voter laws.
So I'm down in Georgia with these grown men dressed up for Civil War, and they're all excited about this new voting law in Georgia, a law they're certain will allow the South to rise again. Law's called SB 202. And it's 98 pages of breathtaking obstacles to voting. I mean, they've made mail-in voting nearly illegal. They've shuttered ballot drop boxes. They've cut Sunday black souls to the polls day. And if you hand someone a slice of pizza or a bottle of water while they're waiting in line for 5 hours, you'll be charged with a felony crime. I'm not kidding. In Georgia, pizza is an act of civil disobedience. I've been covering vote suppression for The Guardian, BBC, Rolling Stone for 2 decades, and I've never seen anything like it. But what shook me up? I'm going through the bill, and I see a landmine planted in it. It's barely noticeable. For the first time in Georgia history, any voter can challenge an unlimited number of other voters and stop their ballots from being counted. And when I say unlimited, I mean unlimited. Our team contacted all 159 counties in Georgia. Muskogee County tells us 4,000 voters were challenged. In Cobb County, it was 48,000 voters challenged.
My husband is a huge Disney fan. And oh geez, Tom, you should have moved our ammo. There's our ammo. So my name is Pamela Reardon. I am currently 6th District Committee woman to the state party. So the last 2 years, I hit over 10,000 doors for President Trump and Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Did President Trump really lose the state of Georgia?
No.
Tell me why. Why do you think that?
Because I know for sure that voters have voted here and do not live here.
I got to give you this. This is, do you know this woman? Do you recognize that woman?
Not offhand.
You don't recognize her?
No, but
do you recognize?
If they were taking pictures with me with them, I mean,
I'm not gonna blame you if you took a picture with her. She's a very nice person.
I don't know. I don't.
Her name is Tamara Horn. Do you know Tamara? You don't know any Tamara?
I don't. The name's not familiar.
You're absolutely certain you don't.
I don't.
You never spoke to her?
No.
What about this guy and his wife on his honeymoon? See, there he is, just so the camera could see that he's on his honeymoon. But do you recognize that man?
No.
The interesting thing. His name is Storm Saul.
Mm-hmm. And I suppose he was on the list.
Yeah. Did you ever speak to Storm Saul?
No, I told you already. I did not speak to the 32,000 people.
But okay. Well,
I can't even follow up on my own people that are calling all the time.
So you never call them, but you challenge the right to vote?
I'd have to go back and look at the list.
Explain that story. In fact, if I get the math right, you made 2 challenges. You challenged 32,379 voters, said don't count their ballots, or
No, just send them a letter to come in and prove that they live still in Georgia at that address.
Okay, I have a piece of paper from you. This is what you filed with the county, which said you are challenging her right to have her ballot counted.
No, I'm not.
It says right here, accept this letter as a challenge to these electors' eligibility to vote. Signed, Pamela Reardon.
I can't go through 32,000 people. I was handed the list.
You can't go through 32,000.
Through the vote, vetted these.
Have you ever heard of the Ku Klux Klan
Okay,
law?
so this.
Have you heard of the Ku Klux Klan law of 1871?
I'm from Canada.
So you don't know the Ku Klux Klan law?
I'm from Canada.
Clearly you don't know Georgia law. Ku Klux Klan law of 1871.
Get out.
Do you believe this woman shouldn't have her vote counted?
That has nothing to do with it.
Is this an attempt to remove a lot of Democrats, black people from voting to win the election?
I am far from that, sir. And you have crossed the line. You have crossed the line. Get out of my house now.
I shall get out of your house
before
now.
I throw you.
And you are sure that this is your legal voting address?
You are an asshole.
Thank you. They do have a rifle right next to the door, so believe me, I wasn't going to overstay my welcome.
So we phoned about 800 of these allegedly illegal voters, and they were shocked. First, what do you mean my right to vote is being challenged? And what do you mean I don't live where I live? We added it up, and more than 250,000 Georgians are facing a challenge to their vote by these vigilante vote challengers, 88 of them. Now, one of them likes to dress up like, well, A vigilante.
This is a it's a Ruger new Vaquero. It's a single action. I got it stuck in there where it won't fall out. So. I am Alton Russell from Columbus, Georgia. I am the Georgia Tellteller. And I'm a toilet paper salesman, the way I make my living. Wiping up. Right now, I'm the chairman of the Columbus-Muskogee Republican Party, and I serve on the state committee and the state executive committee for the Georgia State Republican Party. So I'm pretty involved in that, which I think is the right. Let's see, that would be the right way to be, and also I'm on the right.
Apparently, you had filed some challenges to 4,000 voters.
Yes.
No ballot. No ballot in the mail, called to register, and the announcement there was, Mr. Turner, you have been challenged.
Major Gamaliel Turner is the military's expert on warfare of the future.
I project weapons and capabilities out to the future. For me, it's all about the survival of the soldier.
Assigned to Port Hueneme in California.
So you're telling me 2,600 miles away, 2 days or 3 days before an election, that if I want to vote, all I have to do is show up and prove as an American citizen that I have the right to vote again? You talk to fools like that. You talk to fools like that. I'm not a fool. You can't compel somebody to say, oh, you can vote. I'm trying to vote now. How are you going to put these other things like, it's no more than a poll tax. It's no more than how many pieces of bubble gum are in this jar. It's the same thing over and over, just modernized and reviewed.
So it's an old Jim Crow tactic.
It's the same thing. But I know what it looks like, because I was there.
Indeed, he was there. Major Turner comes from an illustrious civil rights family. His father, Reverend Harold Turner, founded the Southern Christian Leadership Conference alongside Reverends Ralph Abernathy and Martin Luther King.
A lot of the meetings, private meetings, coordinating meetings was done at our house. Martin was there, Reverend Abernathy was there.
They were just like friends and family and people coming in. We're sitting here at this table, but I'm gonna tell you, this table had papers on it. This was a working table.
Speaking from the pulpit, I had an opportunity to change some lives. Did I take that opportunity wisely? I think I did.
Oh, looks like you did.
You baptized me.
Wow. So
They mean.
The modern civil rights movement that was born right here at this dining room table would lead to the passage of the Voting Rights Act and change America's heart and soul. A revolution planned right here because the Turner House was strategically located between the King and Abernathy homes. So the leadership could cross through a series of backyards and not be seen for their safety.
This is a hideout.
They slowly but surely, one at a time, a 5 or 10 minute gap between each other, will come through the backyards and sit.
Bless this house, O Lord.
He remembers praying
Standing on solid ground.
praying they wouldn't be arrested or beaten on their way back home.
Son, let the Lord in.
Yes.
Yes, it was a very scary conversation about what they were about to do.
His mother taught at a grammar school until 1960, when it was dynamited by segregationists.
It was tough. It was tough. It was tough. Being black.
How did you feel when they said, you've been challenged?
I was angry. I was fearful. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. Not my country. Not now. Not this day and time. It was just hard to accept. It was hard to accept. Excuse me.
And behind the challenge to Major Turner,
I blow up government spending. My chainsaw's ready.
behind the vigilante law, is this man.
I got a big truck, just in case I need to round up criminal illegals and take them home myself. Yep, I just said that. I'm Brian Kemp. If you want a politically incorrect conservative, that's me.
I've been investigating vote suppression for decades. But for each of the last 9 years, my investigations always end up in Georgia, ever since this Brian Kemp became Secretary of State. Here's an example. Leading up to the 2016 presidential election, Rolling Stone wants me to investigate a scheme that's removing thousands of voters that are voting in 2 states. Well, voting twice is a crime, so they're knocking off these thousands of voters. But where do they get the lists of double voters? I find that Brian Kemp is sharing his voter rolls with another Secretary of State, a guy in Kansas named Chris Kobach. Kobach is Donald Trump's special vote fraud hunter. Kobach takes Kemp's list of voters and cross-checks it against the voter rolls in 24 states, and they're scrubbing literally hundreds of thousands of double voters from the rolls. All these criminals. So I get my hands on Kemp's little secret list, and guess what? The double voters all have names like Jose Garcia, James Brown. In fact, in Georgia, they claim that this James Brown voted 288 times. I'm looking closely at the lists and realizing that almost none of the middle names match. They didn't care. They got rid of thousands of Jose Garcias in 24 states. And while I'm in Georgia, I stopped at the Ebenezer Baptist Church, Martin Luther King's old church, and I run into the leader of the Democrats in the state legislature.
My deep concern is that this is one more attempt to purge voters unlawfully and without adequate information, as opposed to what a Secretary of State should be committed to, which is enfranchising voters to the best of his ability.
While I was at the church, I also showed the Kemp hit list to the minister.
So far, there's been very little evidence produced to show the basis for all of these voter ID laws, cutting voting in half. This is voter suppression, pure and simple.
In 2018, I'm sent back down to Georgia because this time Kemp has removed a breathtaking 500,000 voters from the voter rolls. He says they don't live in Georgia anymore. Okay, you don't live in Georgia. You shouldn't vote in Georgia. So I get Kemp's new hit list and give it to the same experts who tell Amazon and Google where you live. Believe me, they know where you live. The experts run Kemp's list through their computer, and they tell me here are 340,134 voters who still live at their legal voting address. In 2018, Kemp is Secretary of State, so he's in charge of the voting. So he knocks off all these legal voters while he's running for governor. I tried every way conceivable to talk to Kemp about the voter purges, including filing a lawsuit. I finally caught up with him at a pig roast. Mr. Kemp, are you removing black voters from the voter rolls just so you can win this election? Sir, why do we have to sue you to get the names of voters who've been removed? Why are you... You know, we use the wonderfully polite term voter suppression. But come on, when your car gets stolen, you don't say, my car's been suppressed, my car's been suppressed. It's been stolen. Your right to vote's been stolen. Now, I'm talking all these numbers like 340,000 voters, 48,000 voters, 32,000 voters, but it's not just numbers. I've been to the polls, and I've been there when these Americans are told, go away. You can't vote here anymore.
Has this ever happened to you before?
Never. And it's horrible. She's been in this community back when when they were doing sit-ins. She held civil rights meetings at her home. And today to come out and not be able to vote and no one can give you an explanation, like, it's extremely emotional and it bothers me. It bothers me to my core. Like, there's actually no record of her whatsoever voting in any election whatsoever, and it's ridiculous. I'm sorry.
The next day, I went over to her home, the home Kemp said she no longer lives in.
Yes, Jesus, love me. Yes, Jesus, love me. Yes, Jesus, love me.
I'm given her age. I asked her if she ever met Martin Luther King. And she said, yeah. He had Sunday dinners here. He was my cousin.
Daddy King was my great uncle.
So, you know, when I grew up around like constantly hearing about the civil rights movement and everything that people have done for us to get this power, and to know that it was taken away from my grandmother, like next year it could be taken away from me. Like, you never know. And I was just really hurt. And I really couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. Since I was about 5, I've been going with her to vote every year, like religiously. And she always made sure I got my voter sticker. You gotta get your sticker.
So it's like you were disappeared, like you were not even a person anymore.
That's what I said. I was dead and gone, buried. But I'm still on top of the earth by the hip of the master.
Now, what could possibly be the excuse for canceling the votes of Christine Jordan, Major Turner? The politician's excuse is always the same: voter fraud.
Evidence of voter fraud. We have numerous double voters.
Millions of ballots all over the country. There's fraud. They found them in creeks.
Truth is, they want voter fraud. Voter fraud.
Voter fraud. We have numerous out-of-state voters.
California, Georgia, Indiana, Alabama, Washington, and so many other states.
The deceased casting ballots. This is going to be a fraud like you've never seen.
Well, elections are more important than necklaces, but for some reason, we don't act that way.
It's a fraud.
Now, President Trump claimed there were thousands of illegal voters in Georgia. Where did Trump get this crazy idea?
I led the fight to aggressively investigate all allegations of voter fraud. Stop voter fraud. Stop potential voter fraud.
Kemp arrested dozens. He's accused thousands. He's canceled the registrations of over 500,000 suspect voters, but not one, not a single voter has been convicted of attempting to cast an illegal ballot. Now, I'm not saying there's no fraud ever. Out of several billion, and I mean billion ballots cast in the past decade in America, there are a few cheats.
These 3 retirees from the Villages are charged with voter fraud. Prosecutors say they cast multiple ballots during last year's presidential election.
Joan Halstead, Jay Setzik, and John Ryder were all registered Republicans at the time.
One side screaming voter fraud, and the other side they're actually finding people that's committed voter fraud. I think that's a little hilarious.
But when Trump and Kemp talk about voters stuffing ballot boxes, they don't mean white voters. It's an old story. 100 years ago, there was a Ku Klux Klan propaganda film called Birth of a Nation. It showed a white actor in blackface sneaking in an extra ballot. The film was a huge hit. It was screened at the White House. And it convinced Americans that you had to have all these restrictions on black people or they'll commit voter fraud. Now today, there's a new film.
2000 News, live from Mar-a-Lago in Florida. Former President Donald Trump, live on SalemNewsChannel.com.
It's the new Birth of a Nation. And once again, it says that black men, by the thousands, commit voter fraud. They vote several times.
This particular individual we have in a number of different locations. He's actually a mule. He gets out, approaches the box. When people walk up with intention to cheat, they look around, they basically walk fairly quickly. They try to stuff him in, they try to get out of there. In this case, he drops a few on the ground, pick them up, stuff them into the box. Then he hustles back and hustles out of there. So this is what it looks like.
All I see is a black guy putting a couple of ballots into a drop
Part
box.
is really,
Folks drop in their families' ballots too, which Georgia law encourages. Now think this, every
Like,
single
man
drop
is
box in Georgia has a
driving
security
up,
camera on it. And the
trying to
2000
hurry up
Mules
and
guys
get
say
his,
this voter has dumped ballots in
box.
27 drop boxes,
You know,
and they
he
have
just
the
rolled up
videotapes. But
and
oddly, they don't show
probably,
the 27
dropped them off
videotapes.
for
They show the
maybe his,
same tape over and over.
parents and elders or whatever.
He needs a shoehorn.
This is
And
a
they're
smoking
saying
gun.
there's something
This is
wrong
O.J.
with him
Simpson being
because he's just
seen
trying to
leaving
get
the scene of the
ballots
crime.
put in.
But they tell you they have
He didn't
something
even,
better than videotape.
like,
What we're going to show you now, what kicks it up a notch is that we have the
Not like he's
geospatial
taking
data
money out
to
of
support
ATM or
the video.
They've got a very fancy
They
scientific
have a
method
whole
to nail
training
these
video
black
with
ballot
him in it
stuffers.
saying that
It's
this
called
is how it looks when
geo-tracking.
somebody
They
is
track
doing
millions of cell
something,
phones. It's very
wrong
scientific. They
or
show satellites
nefarious.
up in the sky and computer lights flashing back and forth and these mules going from Dropbox to Dropbox. I mean, it's pretty convincing, unless you know something about geo-tracking, which is that you can't get closer than about 93 feet. So anyone within 93 feet of a Dropbox is a mule. Now, who would go by these same drop boxes every day? Well, how about we change the name of the film from 2,000 Mules to 2,000 Mailmen? Wow. So, did you see O.J. Simpson leaving the scene of the crime?
But let me tell you what I saw. You know, this is the complexity and the nuance of racism in America. That by the very presence of who he is, he's considered guilty. Because in the dehumanizing of Black people, who the hell is he to think that he has a right to vote? The truth didn't matter. What they want was the image. And just them showing up alone constitutes something fishy and criminal-like is happening. That is the greater issue. I mean, to call a human being a mule.
Yeah.
A man who literally is getting out his car, doing his democratic duty to go vote, and to refer to him as a mule. I mean, full stop. Where do we go from there?
So who came up with this 2,000 Mules film? It's an outfit called True the Vote. You may recall their other handiwork.
Let me explain.
Yeah, go ahead.
Those lists come from True the Vote.
Who's True the Vote?
They're out of Texas, and they work on this constantly, and they've been doing it for over 10 years.
This is the crew out of Texas that targeted Major Turner. And they're the hitmen behind mass attacks on hundreds of thousands of voters from Missouri to Pennsylvania. I hunted down the source of True the Vote's cash to Milwaukee, to the doorstep of their uber right-wing billionaire backers, the Bradley Family Foundation. Now, the Bradley Foundation's secretary is Cleta Mitchell, Donald Trump's attorney, who directed his scheme to overturn the election.
It was about fraud. This election was rigged.
She's now created yet another army of vigilantes, supposedly using artificial intelligence, a program called Eagle AI. Based on spurious evidence, they've already challenged thousands of innocent voters. In 2021, Mitchell was hauled before Congress over her role in instigating the January 6th insurrection.
Brian Kemp didn't invent the voter vigilantes. The challenge game goes back to 1942 to a character named Eugene Talmadge. Talmadge was the Ku Klux Klan's candidate for governor. In a statewide radio address, Talmadge said, "Wise Negroes will stay away from the white folks' ballot boxes." But Franklin Roosevelt, Talmadge's nemesis, had promised Black soldiers returning from World War II that they'd have the right to vote. So, to cover his tracks, Talmadge rebranded the Klan as a corporation.
The name the Klan chose for itself? Vigilantes, Inc.
Its sole purpose was to remove Black voters from the rolls, and they did. FBI files reveal that the entire list of Negro registrants was challenged. By removing thousands of Black voters, Vigilantes, Inc. succeeded in electing Talmadge to the governor's mansion.
Well, we had lots of fun out of the campaign. You know, in this campaign, they accused me of practically everything except a capital offense.
But there was a capital offense.
The FBI came here to Monroe to investigate Governor Talmadge and the Vigilantes, Inc. mass challenge of Black voters. In response, that very week, 2 Black veterans and their wives were taken out and shot. That's quite a warning to any Black person who would dare vote.
In 1946, unlike today, the mass challenge of Black voters was ruled illegal.
Today's vigilantes have simply taken the Klan plan and shot it into cyberspace.
Talmadge's vigilantes had to write down the name of every voter they challenged. The new GOP vigilantes have gone digital, replacing white sheets with spreadsheets. They challenged thousands of voters with a single email. The FBI recommended Talmadge be indicted, but the governor was saved from prison when he had a fatal collision with a bottle of bourbon.
You could expect anything from Gene Talmadge, because to begin with, Gene Talmadge was an alcoholic. He was probably 2/3 drunk 2/3 of the time he was in office. At age 13 or 14, I was working as a bartender. I worked at the Henry Rader Hotel, and that's where he would do his drinking. And they would come by the hotel and get him and take him out as a dead person on a cart and take him back to the governor's mansion.
With Talmadge dying, Joe Turner was able to vote.
That was the first year that Georgia opened the voting up to blacks. And we all went down to register. You see, they asked you to write a line of the Constitution. She said, right, there shall be no imprisonment for debt.
So she kind of gave you the answer.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So you cheated.
No. I followed the instructions.
I see, okay.
75 years after Joe Turner won his right to vote, he learned that Kemp had denied the ballot to his nephew, the major, using the same method employed by Talmadge.
In 2014, the group founded by Stacey Abrams registered 89,000 voters, mostly young black students, but 40,000 somehow didn't show up on the voter registry.
And so we approached the Secretary of State and said, hey, what's up with these 40,000 missing voters? And they responded with launching a criminal investigation into the New Georgia Project and the work that we do, alleging that we somehow are illegally or improperly registering voters.
And we're just not going to put up with fraud. I mean, we have zero tolerance for that in Georgia. So we've opened an investigation and served some subpoenas.
Charges were never filed, but 40,000 voters missed the election.
Hey. Hey, Greg.
Around that time, I also met with a cheerful group that launched a campaign called 10,000 Koreans Vote. Now, for 10,000 Koreans to vote, they had to register 10,000 Koreans.
And the way we do it is people fill out their card, kind of like a dentist appointment. Later on, we'll put a stamp here, we'll chop this off, and this goes in the mail to them.
But their lawyer, Helen Ho, contacts Kemp's office and says, hey, why don't we see our voters on the rolls? Kemp's response? Police department, search warrant! Open the door! He sent in the RoboCops to raid the group's office and threatened these elderly Koreans with long prison sentences. Of course, the charges were tossed out, but that was the end of 10,000 Koreans Vote, which was the point. But Kemp's not done. As I speak, he claims that the group Stacey Abrams started recently handed in some registration forms a couple of days late. Now, for this picayune clerical matter, Kemp is demanding that the Attorney General arrest the group's leaders and send them to prison for 10 years or more.
Absolutely. They want to put us under the jail. It stinks of desperation and it seeps through everything that they do. And it often comes along with the threat of violence. We are talking about a Secretary of State that went after college students. They raided a voter registration office and tried to send all of these college kids to jail and came against them with criminal action, right? And the penalty for what they call voter registration fraud in Georgia, it carries with it a penalty up to $10,000 in fines and 10 years in prison per form.
I again was doing what I do, talking to people everywhere I see them at. Hey, have you voted?
Ms. Pearson?
Yeah. Not everybody likes that I'm doing it.
Olivia Pearson's mother led the county's NAACP.
My mother sued the city of Douglas to get more representation on the city council.
After years of registration drives, Olivia became the first Black woman to win election to the council.
When I received the letter in 2016 from the Secretary of State signed by Brian Kemp.
Kemp used his power as head of the state election board to have Olivia charged with the felony crime of interfering with voters.
I could have served up to 5 years in prison. So it was very, very, very frightening. It was very depressing. I had to go and receive counseling to help me to cope with it. It was horrendous.
A jury quickly found her not guilty because, as it turned out, disabled voters had filled out the official forms requesting her help.
They had the handcuffs around my back, my hands to the back. I couldn't get into the car with them like that. I was in excruciating pain.
The New York Times wrote that Olivia's case made Brian Kemp a pioneer of present-day voter suppression.
The young lady that I was with at the time, she told me, she said, "Miss Olivia, I don't even want to vote. After all of this, I don't want to vote anymore. I don't want to do it." And I had to beg her and explain to her that that's what they're doing it for, is to cause people to be afraid to exercise the right to vote.
From his very first year as Georgia's voting chief, Brian Kemp literally ordered armed seizures. He sent the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, Georgia's own version of the FBI, to Quitman, Georgia, to arrest 10 newly elected members of the school board. The first Black members on the board, arresting teachers, including 2 PhDs. Kemp accused them of stuffing tampered ballots into mailboxes, that same old accusation as in 2000 Mules. Kemp had them paraded in handcuffs and orange suits like they were terrorists at Guantanamo. Local journalist George Boston Rhines has closely tracked the case.
I'm George Boston Rhines, and I'm in Quitman, Georgia. And I am immediately, just got down here. These are the Quitman 10. This is what I do.
After 4 years of prison over their heads, the Quitman 10 were acquitted of every charge.
So much stress was on those people. Lula Smart even considered taking her own life.
With all the indictment that I had, in my mind, I thought, well, if I just commit suicide, this will be over.
Another suffered from lupus.
Latasha Head, she died, and I interviewed her father, and he said that he believed that his daughter's death was a result of the stress and pressure brought about by Secretary of State Brian P. Kemp.
Rhines explained that the persecution of the Quitman 10 brought up traumatic memories of the lynching of 12 Black men in 1918, what is called the Week of Terror. When Mary Turner raised her voice about the execution of her husband by vigilantes, they came after her.
Oh, wow.
Where are we? Can you tell me what we're about to do?
This is the old Brooks County Jail. This is where all of the equipment, and this is where all of the men that were arrested during that Week of Terror in May of 18 would have been housed in this jail before they was lynched. This is my first time ever coming into this place. I've heard some horror stories about this place. In May of 1918, Mary Turner was lynched. They took her, she was 9 months pregnant, turned her upside down, riddled her body with bullets. A white mob member took a hog knife, ripped over her abdomen, and out fell an 8-month-old fetus. And when that fetus fell to the ground, the white mob member took the heel of his boot and crushed that baby's head.
Even today, the memory of Mary Turner is a political battlefield. The plaque commemorating her was shot up so often, it had to be removed.
Getting up every day
working as hard as we can to make sure that Stacey Abrams is not going to be our governor or your next president. What a great night to be a Georgian, everybody. He was a builder, he worked hard and started from scratch. He's a self-made man.
At least that's the story he sells, that he rose from a humble little cabin in the woods.
Their 3 daughters grew up here.
I need to get on that tractor right now and cut that pasture right there.
That little house, it was one more gift from his father-in-law, insurance mogul state rep Bob Argo. A Georgia political powerhouse. We discovered a trove of documents telling a very different story from Kemp's invented history. They reveal that Brian Porter Kemp comes from a long line of privilege and property. His millions arrived early, yet no one seems to ask, how did some kid out of college end up with a big construction company? The old-fashioned way. He joined his daddy's and grandpa's well-connected company. They cashed in early on building student housing. To make way for their buildings, the land had to be cleared of the Black homeowners on it.
Front door would have been right along in here.
Mm-hmm.
And you opened the door and you walked into what we call the front room, because it didn't have but 3 rooms. And all of us children slept in the middle room. We loved it. We would wake up on Saturdays mornings and whatever's on our minds, and we'd end up in pillow fights.
Uh-huh.
Pillow fights until our daddy said, cut it out. And the men in the community built us a house, not knowing that it was an urban renewal zone. Urban renewal, it was burnt down. On the family survey form, it said the fire department training burned it down.
Wait, the fire department used your new house as training for the fire department by burning your new house down?
Some houses were burned down, some was pushed down.
Or bulldozed them with just hours' notice. How Brian Kemp always ended up with a golden shovel is explained by 4-term Congressman John Barrow. Barrow served on a local housing commission with Kemp.
While he was on that committee, he was building multifamily units that exploited these loopholes, that actually did some of the things we were explicitly trying to do away with. He for example, would come up with fake windows. I mean, there are all kinds of things like that that were going on. For some people, it's very difficult to think that there's anything wrong with something that puts $1 in their pocket.
Playing fast and loose with the facts helped Kemp's political rise.
I'm a small business owner.
It began with his run for state senate in a swing district with many Black voters. So Kemp ran ads claiming his family fought segregation.
Former Senator Julian Cox, Brian Kemp's grandfather, boldly voted to integrate the University of Georgia. Those are the values that Brian Kemp was raised on.
When the record was completely different, they came up with a scheme that Mr. Cox supported, a scheme to essentially privatize the public school. State-sponsored, state-supported privatization of segregation.
Kemp's unleashing Pam Reardon and the posse of vigilante voter challenges ran into a problem. Their first attempt to challenge voters was rejected by local elections boards. So Kemp added an extraordinary provision to SB 202. Kemp gave himself the right to remove any local elections commissioner that rejects the challenges. Helen Butler runs the voting rights organization that was founded by the Reverend Joseph Lowry. She was placed on the elections board for her expertise.
I was a member of the Board of Elections. I had been on the board since 2010, and I was on until June of 2021.
She is Mrs. Vote in Georgia. She's the one who taught me everything I know about voter registration and voter mobilization.
Civil rights attorney Gerald Griggs, famed for bringing R. Kelly to justice, is now president of the Georgia NAACP.
And they removed her.
Yes.
Why?
They removed her because, again, the provisions of SB 202 allow for a state takeover of local election boards. Another reason why we're suing.
They wanted people that were not as vocal as we were, wanted to make sure that they had total control of the Board of Elections.
Helen asked questions, and when Kemp didn't answer, she and reporter Palast won a federal court order forcing Kemp to open his voter purge files. Griggs was their attorney.
So you think it was retribution?
I mean, they won't say it's retribution, but what other reason would you take over that election board and remove Helen?
They wanted to make sure to silence our voice because the Board of Elections, as I said, they determine who gets registered, when they get registered, how they get registered, whether your vote counts, when it counts, how it counts, and we get to certify the election.
So who are they that you said they didn't want?
My county board of commissioners who happen to be majority Republican.
Removing skeptical experts from elections boards lets Kemp, once again, choose his own voters and count his own votes. And dangerously, it opens the door to overturning the presidential vote in 2024.
Trump said to the Secretary of State, find me 11,000 votes. How do you find those 11,000 votes?
Well, to find those 11,000 votes, you either have to have the members of the boards of elections who will not certify the elections and say, no, I think we can disqualify these amount of votes. Well, I'm not going to be a party to that. Whatever the voter intent was, that's what it is.
Griggs suggested that the Justice Department shoot back at the vigilantes with the post-Civil War Ku Klux Klan Act, which makes intimidating a voter a prison time offense.
You said the Ku Klux Klan law, 1871.
Yes.
Okay, it's well over, it's a century and a half.
But we're in the middle of the new Jim Crow 2.0. And so we have to use the same means that we used against Black codes and Jim Crow to now deal with Jim Crow 2.0, because there is a feeling in this country that certain people by mere race or ethnicity or gender are not as fundamentally American and thus not entitled to the protections of American civil rights. So we have to use those civil rights protections to continue to grow access to the franchise, which is why we've used a code that's almost 130 something years old.
And so what we see is a consistency with Kemp, creating mechanisms to actually lift up the violence that has been inflicted on African-American communities. We can even talk about the signing of Senate Bill 202 that was passed shortly after the election in Georgia, where we were able to put these two new senators, an African-American and a Jewish man, in office after we were able to, the state flipped to be a Democratic state. That what we saw immediately coming out of that was a legislative session where they passed this bill, Senate Bill 202. In that bill, it is filled with violence.
For what? Under arrest for what?
And at the same time, right outside of the room, when a duly elected official who had every right to be at the signing of a bill.
Why are you arresting her?
She actually was dragged out as if she was a criminal, as if she wasn't human. If you go back to the bill signing, what you will see Governor Kemp sitting under a painting of a plantation. What is more violent than the image of a plantation where people were killed, maimed, stolen, sold, dehumanized, right? And flanked by all white men, as if that is in any form or fashion representative of the state of Georgia.
Kemp's family, if you know, had several such plantation houses. But that old cotton-picking wealth has transformed into a company Kemp calls Plantation Partners LLC, part of a portfolio of private forests. He'll cut down these trees for Koch Industries to turn it all into toilet paper.
The governor values this little toilet paper farm at $2.2 million. He's got a lot of others.
Kemp's family was once one of the largest plantation owners in Georgia. Roswell Mills was the manufacturing heart of the Confederate war machine. Where Kemp's ancestors made the gray uniforms known as Roswell Gray. And here is one of their grand manor houses. Even the toys taught the children the difference between their happy lives and the lives of those they owned. But to find the original source of their wealth, you have to travel to the humid Savannah coast. Georgia's plantation system was created by the first governor of Georgia in Kemp's family, James Habersham. Habersham became one of the wealthiest men in the South by transforming agriculture. That is, he was first to import captured Africans into Georgia. Sales boomed, even when some of his products committed suicide or died of smallpox on the slaver ships.
We've been brought up thinking that slavery was always just here in Georgia. That just ain't so. In fact, until just before the Revolutionary War, slavery was against the law because churchgoers like these fought a fierce, bloody battle to prevent slaves from coming to Georgia.
The horrified local farmers who attended this church unanimously petitioned the king to stop the importation of enslaved people. They wrote, "It is shocking to human nature that any race of mankind and their posterity should be sentenced to perpetual slavery." Thomas Jefferson, although a friend of the Habershams, threatened their human trafficking business. Here, at the Habersham Savannah Mansion, Jefferson wrote a draft of the Declaration of Independence, including a long passage that denounced the slave trade. Slavery is a war against human nature itself, violating its most sacred rights of life and liberty by captivating and carrying Africans into slavery and miserable death. It was the only passage of the Declaration removed by the Continental Congress on the demand of the Georgia delegation, headed by Joseph Habersham. A British visitor, Fanny Kemble, wrote in her diary about the cruelty she witnessed by the notorious slaver, Kemp's ancestor, Roswell King.
The handcuff, the lash, the tearing away of children from parents, of husbands from wives, the labor of body, the despair of mind, the sickness of heart. These are the realities which belong to the system in this country of yours which boasts itself the asylum of the oppressed, the home of freedom.
Ultimately, the families were sold in the largest auction of humans in history. It is remembered today by their great-grandchildren as weeping time. Griffin Lotson directs the Geechee Gullah ring shouters. They preserve their Gullah language and songs from Africa's rice coast, And they brought rice planting technology to the South.
Wow.
Lotson's great-grandmother was sold at the Weeping Time auction.
The phrase that they call weeping time came from the largest slave trade in America's history. Most of those enslaved came from right here on Butler Island.
There's a defiant purpose in preserving this plantation and songs of his Gullah Geechee heritage.
But if you suppress the history, you suppress the vote. Yeah, I know a lot about the voter suppression firsthand.
City Councilman Lotson would have been commissioner, but ballots were suspiciously disqualified.
And I lost by 1 vote.
Oh.
1 vote. So you can't just talk about somebody, you know somebody that you're standing with now that have lost an election by 1 vote.
So how do you say vote suppression in Gullah Geechee?
Oh, vote suppression. My mother would say, there's a dead cat on the line when it comes to voting, which the meaning of that is that something's not right.
So Palace headed to Savannah, where tourists drank cocktails at the riverboat dock. But underneath, you'll find the hidden storage cells where the Habershams kept Africans for auction. At the Georgia Historical Society, Palace met with an expert on the origin of dead cats on the line.
And so a central political issue of Reconstruction was, will Black people, Black men, be given the right to vote? The Klan originally came about as sort of the military arm of the Democratic Party. It was there to suppress voters. It wasn't just there to carry out intimidation against Black people who used to be slaves. You know, they would pull a man out of his bed and say, we heard that you plan to vote. Is that true? Well, yes. And he might be whipped to within an inch of his life. It was really about suppressing the vote more than just intimidating.
After the Civil War, it wasn't only the Klan that meted out vigilante justice. Our modern vigilante tells us about his hero, Doc Holliday.
He was a very educated and kind of a classy guy. One of the things that happened, they liked to go to swim and found out there was about 5 or 6 African-American boys down there swimming, and it really upset John Henry, so he got a shotgun and ran them off. And of course, part of the story is he ran them off with a shotgun. The other story is that he killed a couple of them.
Major Turner, if you could pull up a chair.
I'm sorry, y'all, I'm gonna break in. I just love the way that this guy, he starts, I don't know what he tells these people to get the interview, but he starts out, you know, just letting them tell their story. Like everything is just, I don't know, like he just thinks they're the greatest and he wants to talk to them and so they can tell their stories. And then in the middle, he flips it on them. So if you were here earlier, he did that with I don't know, what is this lady? Was she I think she was a judge. And then now he's about to do it again with this guy that's sitting there telling all of his old stories and dressed up in his, you know, in his old Civil War vigilante attire. But I'm gonna start back playing it.
So tomorrow you're gonna meet this guy.
He doesn't know he's gonna meet you. He doesn't know he's at your house. The house he says you don't live at and that you don't vote from. He doesn't know anything except that he's gonna do his little Southern shtick. But then he'll meet you. What would you hope? What would you hope would happen when you meet this man?
Simple. I'm sorry. I did not fully understand the impact of what I was doing. Whether it's voting or a challenge like that, or whether or not it's someone coming in our churches and killing our people, we have to be the ones to do the forgiving.
I take it you've never been in this house. If you met Mr. Turner, Major, before?
All right. No, sir. Never have, but I'm glad to meet him today.
You had filed some challenges to 4,000 voters.
Yes.
Yeah. And including, by the way, you have challenged the right to have Major Turner's ballot counted.
I don't know what that means.
Well, did you send the note to any of those people?
No, I did not.
Ask you a question. Here's Major Turner.
Mm-hmm.
Did you contact Major Turner and tell him?
No, I did
Listen,
not.
I'm challenging your vote.
No, I did not.
My country called and asked me to go help them out in California. I've not missed any opportunities to vote from 1996 since I've been here up until this last election.
Do you want to apologize to this man for what he went through?
I don't. What I will do, Major, I apologize for the problems that you had. I don't know how I can apologize for the process because obviously I don't understand the complete process. So I don't know how I can apologize for that.
The law says we have to vote.
That was just a huge lie. Also, earlier they showed a picture of him with the other woman. I should have written her name down because I don't remember what it was, but the other woman that did a huge amount of challenges, they had a picture of both of them together. So he knows exactly what he was doing. He knows what they're doing. He knows what the agenda is. So, of course, he wasn't going to give anything genuine because, this is, it's a huge agenda of theirs. But yeah, I just wanted to break in and say that.
Nobody said you had to count the vote. Oh, my vote counted. It's the same. I just go through the process. I or none of my people have any assurance that that vote was actually counted.
And now, a Black voter's ballot getting counted is in more danger because of the impact of 2,000 mules.
We took a look at our 242 mules in Atlanta. So again, this is not grandma out walking her dog. These are, violent criminals sometimes.
Donald Trump called it the greatest and most impactful documentary of our time. And Trump is correct. Millions of MAGA believers bought into True the Vote's hysteria, leading to new laws nearly eliminating ballot drop boxes in 16 states, including swing states Wisconsin, North Carolina, and Georgia. In 2024, vigilante challenges spread out of Georgia like a virus. In Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, GOP vigilantes have already challenged 16,000 voters. Vigilante groups with names like Pigpen Project are operating in Nevada, Iowa, and we tracked vigilantes in swing state Michigan, where challenges have risen by 55%. In Florida, Trump's lawyer Cleta Mitchell has already challenged 10,000 voters. In Wisconsin, 135,000 voters were challenged. We mapped the challenges and discovered they were almost all in Black precincts of Milwaukee and aimed at students at the University of Wisconsin.
And if I get taken off the voter rolls, it's just not fair. So if I'm living in Wisconsin, I would love to have my vote be counted.
And the biggest threat comes from True the Vote, the 2,000 Mules crew. In their test run in Georgia, they had 88 vigilante volunteers. In 2024, True the Vote has signed up 40,000 vigilantes, attacking in 43 states. By August, they'd already challenged 851,000 American voters. And in Arizona,
those vigilantes showed up with their weapons and their drones. They had drones going over polling sites, monitoring people, like policing people, and employees scared to go into their office. We sent our teams out to make sure that they would be okay. So when you're showing up at a polling location in militarized or military-looking uniforms, vests, goggles, and with weapons, or just posting out in front of these boxes, you are trying to intimidate folks who have experienced a history and a legacy of violence.
That's the QAnon shaman whose horns have been clipped. Just got out of prison.
We can't get security on our streets until we reform and secure our elections.
One quick question. They stop people from monitoring the drop boxes. What do we do about that?
Oh, we need to get rid of the drop boxes.
And in Texas, the vigilantes got violent.
He said, help me, with his hand inside his coat. Then when I tried to help him, he pulls out a gun. That is when I was told to get on the ground.
Court records show Aguirre believed Zuniga was driving his work truck around with 750,000 illegal ballots inside. When police got to the scene, they found air conditioning parts inside. No illegal ballots.
The accusation was that I masterminded this scheme to go and forge all of these mail-in ballots.
At 8 seconds each, it'd be about, about 200 years to do that. So it's amazing. You forged all those ballots. So tell me about how you forged the ballots.
First of all, I'm too lazy to sign hundreds of thousands of ballots. I'd be nuts. A vigilante stopped this air conditioning repair guy, said that he was a police officer, had the guy on the ground, telling him, open up the truck, had his pistol out on the guy. I mean, I can imagine how terrorized he was.
The gunman was not a lone wolf. He was one of dozens of armed vigilantes hired by an election-denying billionaire.
Was arraigned on felony charges of unlawful restraint and aggravated assault with a deadly weapon in connection with a badly botched, privately bankrolled investigation of alleged election fraud.
There were people outside my home with signs one day saying, stop the steal. So one idiot is out there with a rifle on his shoulder. So no, there's a real fear of it. I take the security now. It's a real concern. I mean, the level of vitriol out there, it's just amazing.
Ellis was a target because, during COVID, the commissioner was about to mail out ballots to all voters in Houston. He was blocked by the Texas Attorney General, who crowed that
Harris County mail-in ballots that they wanted to send out were 2.5 million, and we were able to stop every one of them. Had we not done that, Donald Trump would have lost the election.
And back in Georgia, in 2024, they passed a new law giving even more power to vigilante vote challengers.
So I fully expect 2024 to be the wild, wild west when it comes to election challenges. So if there was 180,000 challenge before, I'm looking at more, maybe 300 to 400,000. So they'll have unlimited voter challenges both before and after the election. So vigilantes are going to be out in mass. Yes, they want to make it easier to challenge and harder to vote.
Why is Georgia always seem to be creating the blueprints for vote suppression?
Well, we are the Deep South. We are the place where the Southern strategy began, both Georgia and Alabama. The new Southern strategy is beginning here.
In the 1960s, the GOP's Southern strategy included Operation Eagle Eye, challenging Black and Hispanic voters right in the polling station.
You may have heard of something called Operation Eagle Eye. Well, a better name for it would be Operation Evil Eye. One of its objectives is to frighten you and others by frivolously challenging your right to vote. It has been launched in nearly every state in the Union.
Eagle Eye recruits also patrolled certain wards of the city in mobile units equipped with two-way radios, ready to pounce on the nearest irregularity.
Spanish-speaking neighborhoods, go ahead. South on Class W9HGX Mobile is on the way with the Eagle crew.
Eagle Eye has returned as Eagle AI, utilizing artificial intelligence to modernize Klan-style challenges. A group of wealthy Christian nationalists has launched Operation Checkmate, a secret plan to use Eagle AI to challenge 280,000 voters in Arizona, Nevada, Georgia, and Wisconsin.
They said that my address was a problem with my address, which it shouldn't be because I'm in the same county.
The issue was black voting. The whites figured out that there were other less violent ways to achieve the same ends. And the 15th Amendment, which expressly forbid anyone being kept from voting because of their color. Well, how do you get around that? Later in the Jim Crow period, of course, you've got the infamous jelly bean jar. If you were able to guess how many jelly beans were in the jar, then you can vote. When white people come in to register, you never ask them for their poll tax receipt. You don't ask them to read the Constitution. That's exclusively done to black people.
The 15th Amendment's protection of black voting rights came to an end when in 1876, Southern white Democrats cut a deal with Northern Republicans to have Congress overturn the presidential election.
When the election of 1876 took place, the eventual winner, who was Rutherford B. Hayes, who was a Republican, was behind in the popular vote, and he was also behind in the Electoral College. So competing slates of electors, Democrats and Republicans, it was going to be up to Congress to decide which of those was legitimate.
The election came down to one man, as it would a century and a half later.
And this man was going to single-handedly decide who the president was going to be. We saw Mike Pence in that situation recently, who said one man shouldn't decide the presidency.
I need to speak to you for a second.
Okay.
You're not going to believe this. It's insane. It's crazy. They heard the word Mike Pence. They stopped the whole interview. They said, we can't film. And they said, we got to protect our new corporate donors on our board.
Welcome to the 2022 Trustees Gala.
We're especially grateful for the support of Chick-fil-A, the Home Depot Foundation.
A who's who of Georgia's corporate elite, whose histories are protected by the Georgia Historical Society.
Georgia Power. That's the company where I did an investigation of racketeering, political bribery and corruption, and suspected murder. Nice guys. So this is the guy.
Yeah, got to protect them. CEO of Georgia Pacific.
That's Koch Industries, Koch brothers.
Ladies and gentlemen, to induct the 2022 Georgia Trustees, please welcome.
Oh, God.
And here's the man who appointed them all.
The Honorable Brian Kemp.
Governor Brian Kemp is preparing to sign a number of bills into law that will impact every student across the state.
Yeah, it does a few things here. It would speed up the process to ban books, make it easier
House Bill 1084 bans the teaching of divisive concepts. It ensures all of our state and nation's history is taught accurately.
No child in Georgia will have to learn that the Klan elected their governors. No child in Georgia will have to learn that Mr. Kemp's wealth came from Africans brought here in chains. Or watch this film in school. Kemp was not the first to threaten teachers for teaching history.
As president, I was proud to issue the world's first ban on critical race theory in September of 2020.
Which Biden revoked his first day in office. Following Georgia, other states are passing so-called divisive concept laws. Notably, states that passed new vote suppression laws.
The dynasties that have ruled America are not about to give up their rule. It's about their power and their privileges. And they're not going to let voters take it away. And they're prepared to stop those voters by any means necessary.
It hurts me, it bothers me when someone says, it doesn't matter whether I vote or not. I'm just worried.
Our nation is witnessing a merciless campaign to wipe out our history, defame our heroes, erase our values, and indoctrinate our children.
Law enforcement is going to their houses and places of employment and making people afraid to go out and exercise their rights.
Open and clear, we have a visual. Repeat, we have a visual.
And today to come out and not be able to vote, it bothers me to my core.
Whose vote? My vote, not his.
We're seeing, Civil War Part 2.
Time to do something. Time to do something. If we don't get it back in November.
The good news is that there's a new South Rising. There is a new South Rising. We're building a base of people who actually believe in America that is more just and more equitable, that is literally going to make a shift.
We are a new generation from the ones who have come before. He's calling us into freedom. Let my people go. Wade in the water. We did wade in the water. Children, wade in the water. God said it's gonna trouble the water.
I got to see some of the worst and ugliest aspects of America. At the same time, some of the greatest. I got to see people that had nothing eventually have something. I got to see what Martin said when he said little black boys and little white girls walk hand in hand together. They're getting married now. The face of our nation, the thought process is changing. Yes, there are those that resent this, but that too shall pass. We just have to know that as a nation, we're stronger and better than all of that.
Water used to come through here high, real high. They would throw blacks over here. I do believe that the spirits is crying out for justice from the grave. I say, when I grow up, I would like to come here and try to dig up those bones of those black folk and give them a proper burial.
But spirits drowned will rise. America is a haunted house, and our ruling dynasties have gone to war with its ghosts, the ghosts of our history. Until America hears these spirits, neither they nor we will be set free.
Wade in the water, we did wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water.
So yeah, that looks like that's about it. And I appreciate y'all coming over here to watch it with me. So while we're reaching out to these senators and Congress people and whoever we are reaching out to right now about all the different things, it looks like this is definitely one that needs to be at the forefront of whatever, letters we're sending, especially to whatever Democratic representatives we have, because they need to know that this is, really at the forefront. I mean, this is really important, because if we're out here voting and, are trying to vote, and the vote is, you're not able to vote when you go to put your ballot in, You know, and it looks like it's happening a lot, but you know, this challenging situation, but not enough to where it is really like big news. Or, you know, I guess they're doing it, I guess they're picking and choosing how they do it so that it doesn't end up on the local news. But at the same time, it's enough to shift, you know, it's enough to shift whoever would really be president, or, you know, I guess in any election. And I did say I was going to start voting in every, you know, because sometimes I'm not as concerned about the smaller elections. I'm like, not an election is going to pass me by, and I don't really know anything about like all of the different things that are in the policies, especially like the local ones. But I'm going to have to get more well versed. And sometimes, you know, like where I live, we don't even have a Democratic person that's running. It's just that bad. But Alice, blessed child of God, thank you so much for joining, Alice. I said what I said. Thank you, Texas Toy. I thank you also for participating in the chat, and thank you for subscribing. Warnock. Yeah, I'm sure he's like you said, whatever is keeping them from making this like priority, I don't know. But I think if more constituents reach out and say, hey, this is, you know, this is priority, because they've certainly made it their priority on the other side. Yeah, I was joking with my son the other day. I said, I'm gonna start writing my name in if they don't have a Democratic person. They don't have a Democratic person on the ballot. I'm gonna be like, how can I run for this office? Well, I mean, what are your credentials? Well, I really don't have any. I see you don't have a Democrat on here, and I'll just go. I'll figure it out. Lord, this is something else. So anyway, like I said, thank y'all so much. I'm gonna go and try to see if I can find something to nibble on, because all this time I've had some lemonade that I made with some lemon and stevia and a few spoonfuls of peanut butter. So I need to go see what I can really get to eat. I really didn't want to eat a lot because I think I messed my stomach up yesterday. I took all my vitamins, supplements, and some headache medicine in the morning, and then all day my stomach was hurting. And I usually don't eat a whole lot during the day, and I didn't realize what was going on until later. I probably just needed to put something on my stomach. But the more your stomach kind of bothers you, the more you think, oh, I better not put anything on here, because you don't want it to make it worse. But yeah, I'm gonna go get some food, and yes, definitely. Thank you for sharing it. I said what I said, and also Alice, blessed child of God. And if anybody else is here and wants to share this, put the word out. This was before the 2024 election, but we need, they're only gonna, if they succeed in doing this, they're only gonna ramp up more and more and more for every other type of election. So we definitely need to let people know that this is what's happening in the background. They have these documentaries. They have, just a whole like propaganda thing that they do behind our backs and send it out to people. And people really, when it's what you want to think about people, like the man that they were doing that little training video, like he was some type of criminal when he was probably just putting his family's ballots in the box. What is he going to do? Create them and then put them in the box? And, I don't know. It's just people aren't thinking. They're thinking about what they want to see. And then, of course, they just feed their bases this type of propaganda. And we don't even know what's being put out about us. So It's really, really something else. Let's see. I said what I said. There is definitely going to be cheating. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, because they're going to be trying to hold on for dear life. Yeah, openly in plain sight and no one is paying attention. Yep. So hopefully we can do a better job of, we might not know exactly what they're doing, but we just need to be more, I don't know, intentional and well informed about whatever we do find out. So, okay. All right, ladies. Well, thank y'all so much for joining. Anybody who comes in on the replay, thank you for also joining and stopping by. And I'll see you all on the next one. Have a good day.